Welcome to my podcast, Shaping Your Journey. My name is Aldo Matza, percussionist, drummer, and artistic director of Cosa Music, inviting you to join in conversation with friends, artists, professionals, and experts in our music world. And I also invite you to subscribe so you can listen in on a weekly basis or on a regular basis if you like. Today I have the great opportunity of catching up with a great friend, a great percussionist in Los Angeles, Mr. Richie Garcia. Richie, thanks so much for joining me. This is, running and making sure. I know you're so busy, but thanks for taking the time to do this. This is fun.
No, my pleasure, Aldo. It's been a while, so I'm so happy to be, participating in your podcast. So thanks for the invite.
Yes. It's a pleasure. Before we get on to the stories and on our path, shaping your journey and talking about that, tell us just the first thing. Where did this all start for you? Like, what was that first spark that started the music for you? And the rest is history, as they say,
Well, I mean, if I go back to when I was a kid, I was raised first by my grandparents, and my aunts and my uncles very much loved the music, and this was in New York. I was raised first as a little boy on East 110th Street between 3rd and Lexington in Manhattan. And what's ironic, which I'll tell you in a minute, but my aunts and my uncles were into the doo-wop and all that kind of stuff of that time. So I was around it, hearing it, and as far as any musical instrument, I didn't have any exposure yet, but I would see it on TV, etc. That whenever my aunts and uncles would watch things, but when my mom remarried in Puerto Rico. My stepfather, who is actually Garcia, last name, because I'm Richie Gajate Garcia. So Gajate is my real father's name. Garcia is my stepfather's name, but I was raised by my stepfather in Puerto Rico. He was a conga player in the early days in the 40s. He played with Xavier Cugat. It was the biggest thing he ever did.
Wow.
In San Francisco. And then he was in a band called Havana Madrid in San Francisco. But anyway, this is where he met my mom, So, but then when he met my mom, the first thing I never forget, when I was flown from New York to Puerto Rico to come and live with them. The first thing he asked me, I guess, to try to establish a relationship with me was, "Do you like music?" And I said, "Yeah." I told him yes. Whatever. He says, "Well, here's a record I'd like for you to see if you like it." And the record was I think it was called Puente's Beat and Woody Herman something. I can't remember the exact title of the record, but that's what he put on. And from then on, he says, "Well, I play some congas and stuff, But he, of course, got out of that after that. But so he showed me, and whenever there was a party, there was always a conga in the house and that kind of thing. So that's how it sort of started, me having interest. And, of course, being in Puerto Rico with the Latin music, and I love to dance and all of that kind of thing since I was a kid. All of that I would see, all of these bands play. And the beautiful thing that in those days, parents could take their kids with them to a club and everything. I would just go and I'd be with the kids there, and the parents would be dancing, and there'd be a salsa band somewhere playing, and it was like a family thing, and during the day, during the night, whatever. So it started that way. And then it turned out that my father was very good friends of Tito Puente and Armando Peraza and Tito Rodriguez in Puerto Rico. So whenever Tito Puente would come to Puerto Rico, there would be a big party at my house, and I got to stand right next to Tito, playing him. So the ironic thing, getting back to Manhattan, is that the street where I was raised as a little boy, East 110th Street, today is called Tito Puente Way.
Wow.
Yeah, so,
nice.
Isn't that something, how life makes, paths like that. And I never thought I was going to be a musician for a professional, I guess I'll tell my age, but the Beatles came out, and then all my friends started getting into that kind of thing, and they started getting drums, and so my way, because my dad at the time could not afford to buy a drum set, but we had congas and timbales. So my friends that had drum sets, because their dads were doctors or something, they they would invite me to play because they were my buddies. And so I would play congas and timbales next to them. And that's how I sort of started creating or developing an ear for percussion alongside the drummer, In those days.
Which is something else, yeah.
Yeah, and the other funny thing, because it's just such a trip. My friend that got a drum set, he said, Richie, come over to my house so you can see my drums, my dad, blah, blah, blah. So I get to the house and he says, you want to sit and play? And I had never played a drum set in my life. And I sat down, and the first song he put for me to play to was Sherry Baby, Frankie Valli, The Four Seasons. My first big time gig in my life was Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. And that was the first song.
Wow.
The next song he played was from the Supremes, Stop in the Name of Love. And who have I worked with for a bunch of years? Diana Ross. It's such a trip how things happen like that in life. I never even dreamed. I was in Puerto Rico, I just, and then when I was in high school, it became they used to call me Conga Gajate. Because anytime there was a party, they would say, Richie, bring a conga, Richie conga, and even if you look at my high school, what do they call it? The book that they...
Yearbook. The yearbook.
If you look at the yearbook, you see a picture that says Richie Conga Gajate Garcia, in there. So I started doing that, and then I put a little band together, and it was called Los Latinos. And I had an accordion player, a bass player, guitar player, and I played. I had the first band that I saw in my life from the U.S. live was the Young Rascals, and Dino Danelli had this drum set he had this drum set that was kind of what they call it, I think Sahara Pink or something like that. It was a Ludwig, beautiful kind of, with a shiny kind of thing. So I went nuts. I had to. So the first thing I had was a bass drum, a snare drum, a hi-hat, and one cymbal. That was it. That was my drum set. So I had the timbales, right, and the conga. So I put the timbales as part of it, so we could do the Latin music, and then I had the conga. So I started putting all of that together, only because that's the only thing I had, So I figured out a way in which to play them together. And like I said, my little band we started doing all these high school parties, and all of that. Excuse me. So then after that, when I was a senior in high school, this is when Vietnam was happening. My birth date came up to go to be drafted, but I was still a senior in high school, so they couldn't pull me out. And as soon as I graduated, my father said, I'm sending you, to college right away. So I went to Springfield, Illinois. From being by the beach, beautiful palm trees, to 10 below zero weather. It was something. And I was kind of sad and depressed when I was there at the beginning. But while I was there, I think I probably was the only Puerto Rican in the whole city, And when I went to study business administration because my father was an insurance man in those days.
Right.
And while I was there studying, I just did not. My heart wasn't in it, and so I decided to change my major. And because I used to like to fool around with electronic stuff, I said, well, let me study electrical engineering, thinking that it had to do with that. But then I had these heavy maths and stuff, and it was terrible. But the building that I was in, the math building, was directly next door to the music building. So as I'm trying to learn calculus and all of this crazy math stuff, I'm hearing over there, ba ba da ba ba ba, and all this Count Basie songs, and I'm going like, what am I doing here,
Torture.
Yeah, I was like suffering. So I walked out, and I ran into this a trombone player, David Jackson, dear friend of mine still. He was walking with a trombone, and I said, like, excuse me. I said, are you in the band? I asked him. He go, yeah. Do you play anything? I say, yeah, I play little bongos and congas and stuff. He said, come with me. He says, I'll show you where the band is. So he took me to the band, and I met the musical director. And he says, you play anything? I said, well, I play some bongos. He says, well, we have some bongos back there, as no one knows what to do with them. He says, why don't you pull them out? So when I started playing, I went, papa. They went like, whoa, 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 whoa. So we got to have you in the band. So that's how I sort of started going in that direction. But I didn't know how to read much. I mean, when I was in Puerto Rico, right next door to where I lived, there was the bands that were local in my time was a band called Los Concertinos, the Concertinos, and there's another one called Los Magníficos.
Okay.
And then there was the traditional bands like Gran Combo, Apollo Sound, of the salsa bands, but where they involved a drum set. So I remember right next door there was a man. His name was Johnny Porrata, and he had this drum set, and he says, "You want to come over?" I said, "I'll show you my drums." And he was real into Max Roach and Buddy Rich and all that stuff. And it was the first time I saw a double bass drum kit, And he said,
Wow.
sit down and play. And it was like I was seeing something from another planet, I mean, it was like, wow, look at this. So little by little, I started taking some lessons with him, and he started showing me a little bit about, what quarter notes were and et cetera. But then I sort of lost interest, like I said, when I was in high school. And then now I'm in Springfield, like I was getting back to that. So the musical director says, well, why don't you study music? You have an aptitude, because I started traveling with the college band. And I said, well, I don't know how to read. I really don't know. He says, no. He said he was a trumpet player. His name is Fred Greenwald. He said, I'll teach you how to read. He said, you come every day after class to my office, and I'll teach you how to read, rhythm and stuff. So he did, and I've always, till today, I still thank him for that, because then I got in the band, and I got I got what they call an associate's degree, and then I had a direct contact with the American Conservatory of Music in Chicago, and then I transferred to Chicago, and there I studied with a teacher, James Dutton, who was a mallet marimba player, but he also had a separate department where he had jazz. So there was Thurman Barker was one of the teachers from Chicago, Brian Grice, who used to play with Phil Upchurch in Chicago in the early days. Anyway, so I started, my life started going in that direction, and I started playing like that. And the only the reason why I got into Frankie Valli was that I had a girlfriend, and her father was a contractor for a showroom there called the Blue Max. And the first gig that I played there was for Kay Stevens and Tommy Sands, and I played some congas and bongos, because they didn't have anybody that could read for that. The percussionist, very well. In the early days, conga players, timbales, but they didn't really read, unless they went to school. But they really didn't read. Everything was like by verb, play this, kupa kupa, kupa kupa. Okay, I got it. Next, go. Tagadagada, tagadagada. Oh, tagadagada, tagadagada. Nobody read 8/16s or none of that kind of thing. So while I was doing that kind of thing, I met a Puerto Rican man who had a band. Vitín Santiago was his name, and he was the band that whenever Puerto Rican or Latino, Spanish singers would come to Chicago, they would hire his band to back them up.
Right.
And since I, at the time, was playing some drums and I could read and he started hiring me. So then I got to play with a lot of Puerto Rican singers. That show at the Hyatt Regency was, like I said, Tommy Sands and Kay Stevens. And then from there, I went to Barbara Eden. I Dream of Jeannie. Remember that TV show?
Yes.
So she was a beautiful, everybody came. So this is where my life took off. In the audience was sitting Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. Everybody wanted to see Jeannie, because she was gorgeous.
Yes,
she was the fox of the time. And Frankie Valli, till today, anytime he goes to a different city, he only carries one horn player, but he adds the rest from different cities. If he needs 2 trombones and 2 trumpets, he'll have somebody there, and then they'll, hire them that way. That way he keeps a smaller band. So while I was playing with Barbara Eden and they were in the audience, he asked the manager to ask the band leader to ask me if I wanted to do a few shows with them. That they were in the area. Really, really big with the "Oh, what a night, lady, and who loves you, pretty baby," all those kind of songs. So
I
I
remember
joined them
well.
for. I did
Yes.
3 shows, and I didn't even own a pair of bongos or congas in those days. So there was a store, Frank's Drum Shop, and Drum
No. Maury Lee
Maury
Sean.
LeSean, and another
Yes.
one called Drums Unlimited. Those were
Right.
the 2 shops where I would go buy my books for school, sticks, whatever, whatever I would do. And I went to he said, Maury LeSean, he says, what do you have happening? I said, well, I don't know what to do because I don't have the money to buy all this gear that they're asking me to do. And who knew then about backline and any of that kind of stuff? You had to show up with
Right.
gear. So Maury LeSean, which until today, I have to be grateful to him too. He says, pick what you need, I'll lend it to you. Take it. And he
Yeah.
lent me all of the gear. And I went and I played with the
Nice.
Seasons, excuse me, and after I did the third show, the and Frankie said, they said, "Man, we love your playing." He says, "We'd like for you to tour with us." And at the time, I said no, because I was it was my thing, and I said, "Well, I'm teaching." I started teaching for as a little side thing for the music for the conservatory for my teacher who had the separate little school, and nobody played
Right.
because it was all more classical stuff. So nobody played congas and timbales and none of that in the conservatory. But I did, So he said, "Can you come up with a system or something?" So actually, and I can't say that maybe I'm the first person that ever did this, but I was the first person that I remember doing this. Was I took these? Remember the Ted Reed syncopation book?
Yes. Yes.
So I started coming up with an idea of like, okay, let's see, B2, we'll call it S, slap. And the heel fingers motion, I used to call it palm fingers. And I came up with my idea of naming the stuff so I could teach it to somebody. So by the time I was doing that, I had 40 private students that I was teaching while I was, finishing my degree. And I told Frankie Valli, I said, listen, I'm doing this. I have to finish my degree and whatever. And Frankie said, he said, listen, we really love your playing, but we're going to England right now. We've already hired somebody over there. But when we come back, he says, we'll call you so that you can play. And a friend of mine is like, you idiot. Why would you not leave? But I had to finish my degree. I didn't, and no, Frankie Valli, don't you know? But you know what I mean? People, but I did.
Yes.
But sure enough, a couple of months later, I got a call from them and said, did you graduate and everything? I go, yes, I have my bachelor's in music education. They said, can you travel now? Would you like to travel with us? Sure enough. So then I went on the road and I've never stopped since.
Beautiful. Nice, nice. No, that's fantastic. I mean, I don't believe, I honestly don't believe in coincidences. And, you probably don't either from knowing you. And things like, running into people like Maury LeSean, who became key to a lot of people's lives. I know a lot of people, myself included, Richie, because I went to a percussion camp
Uh-huh.
in Illinois, in Madison, Wisconsin.
Okay.
And they had a little shop at the camp, and then I went to the store, and I was a rock drummer, just starting to discover the rest of this world. So it was just all new to me. At the camp was Gary Burton, who first showed me how to hold 4-mounts. I didn't play. Joe Morello was showing jazz and trading fours, and all those guys.
Right.
To me, it was like another world. So I spent a couple of days in Chicago. And the same thing. He took us out to dinner. There were a couple of us, and I was hanging around. It was a whole new world to me, seeing all these great people coming in and out. And I'm just like, my jaw's on the floor. And I'm saying, wow, this. And then one day I'm buzzing around, and I said, Maury, I'd like to buy a set of M55 vibes, but I don't have the money. So what do you think he did?
Sure.
He said, Aldo, take the vibes, send me the money when you have the money. And I,
That's something.
he did.
What a great supporter of young musicians coming up.
Yeah. So, what that does to, I know what it did to me. It just fueled me. So I was playing drums, vibes. I said, like, I never left the house after that. And I was living in Ottawa at the time,
Yeah.
and I told my parents, if anybody calls my friends, I'm not back yet. And then the rest is history. But,
Yeah.
the same thing with you. I'm sure though that is one of those things that
Oh,
just,
sorry.
give you the push that you need, one of the pushes you need to say, yes, this is exactly what I should do. And people support it and they'll help you out. And of course, you have to stay honest. You have to stay on the case
Right.
and you got to do the work, of course. You have to show up.
Yeah, no, for sure. And to have people like that support you, then it was my job to be responsible and do what they were willing to support me with. And I used
Yeah.
the gear and I took it back and I returned it and everything. And then, as I got a little bit of money, I started buying. I bought a pair of congas and whatever. They didn't cost what they cost these days. So, but it still was a lot of money.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then
Relatively
the
speaking,
drum set,
sure.
I would borrow it from the school that my teacher would let me borrow it because I was helping him out, teaching other people. I expanded his business by teaching congas and timbales and whatever. And I'll never forget, one of my students was a young Puerto Rican kid from somewhere in Indiana who used to come and take lessons with me. And then his first big time gig was Patti LaBelle and the, what were they called? Marmalade.
That's
Right.
right. Marmalade.
They
Yeah,
were
yeah,
called
yeah.
Marmalade, and he played congas with them and stuff like that. Which, of course, years later I got to play with her too. But I taught him, and he was grateful, that I taught him enough, to be able to get a job like that. So it's really something to all through the years, and does so many things. There's so many different things that's been so uplifting and educational because I was in Chicago by myself,
Yeah.
young man from Puerto Rico and finding my way. And I used to work at a department store in order to support myself. I used to work at Sears, and I had
Right.
to,
Yeah.
what my job was? I had to dress the mannequins with lingerie. so,
Oh, poor you, man.
So then, of
That's
course, I would be in the back room. I would dance with a couple of the mannequins. But no, no. But then from there,
that's
I moved up in the world, and I was with the chews and nuts department. So I had to supply the peanuts and cashews and stuff, and fill this thing at night and whatever. But I've never, because thanks to my stepfather, he taught me to work. I've never been afraid to work. Even when I was a young boy, my job was in Puerto Rico was to come around to his office and empty all of the trash cans. And in those days, people smoked inside, so I had to clean every
wow.
ashtray and throw you know what I mean. And that was my job. And then from there, I graduated a little bit, and my job was to fill up the printers with paper. And then from there, when I started driving, my job then I was the messenger. And so I've
Right.
always worked. I unfortunately I did not get to do stuff like go fishing and learn golfing and stuff like that, like a lot of guys, which I wish I could. But I didn't. But I learned to work and I learned to support myself. And
Yeah.
and that was
And that's a really important lesson because you're self motivated and you know what you have to do and you're on it and being dependable, right? And helpful, always be be part of the solution, no matter what. And I'm the same way. And I tell my students, get in there and help out, do whatever you can. You have to be part of somebody else's success. The whole thing at COSA that we've always done
yeah.
is exactly that, is getting people together. How can this help you? And all of those people, you've been at the COSA camps many times.
Yeah.
And, we all sit together, the faculty, then finally the faculty can play with each other in concert. These things never happen. And then the interaction between participants and faculty who later become friends and colleagues. You even brought your sons there. I
Yeah,
mean,
and
Roland.
Roland is like he's like all over the place. I mean, he's gotten to be to be on just about every gig I've ever done because I always pushed him to be my sub, and I
Right.
insisted that he learn to play how I play, setup wise and everything, so that all he had to do was learn the music, walk in and play. And not make people have to change the equipment and move it to the left, and you know what I mean? Because those guys that do the works, the backline stuff, they don't want to be dealing with all this crazy stuff. So
Sure.
I taught him to do that stuff, and he played. He played. Ironically, I get a call from Frankie Valli years when Roland was about 17 years old, and he says, "Richie, I'm playing in Mar-Largo for a concert." In those days, Trump used to do concerts over there, presidency and all this kind of stuff that happens today. But anyway, I played there with Diana Ross. I played there with Frankie Valli. I played, there was gigantic stuff that he would do. So Frankie calls me and I said, Frankie, I'm on the road with Diana Ross, but I tell you what, my son is really good. And Frankie said, okay, well, if you say so, send him. So my son's first big time gig was Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. Same as Devin, who came out. I know. And then Devin, who was my other son, one time, this was just only a few years back, but when I got the gig with Phil Collins, I was leaving, and I said, Frankie, I can teach my son Devin, the show, and it was really simple. And the Frankie had really cut down how much percussion he wanted, just congas, tambourine, and a shaker kind of thing. So I taught him the
Nice.
show. So then my younger son's first big time gig was Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, and that's what a trip, you
Nice.
know. But I got so much experience in Chicago with all of the different groups that I got to play locally. I used to be in a band called it was like a tower power band. It was called Morning After, and we used to play
Okay.
on Rush Street in Chicago, and we used to play, and we had
Wow.
horns and the whole thing, just like Chicago, just like how do you call Tower of Power kind of band. And then I was playing in some of the salsa bands, and I was doing everything. I was all over the place. It's just that I moved away once when I was with Frankie. He said, "Listen, well, we can't be traveling, we can't be flying you from Chicago all of the time. Why don't you move to New York?" So I was single then, whatever. So sure. So I packed up and I went to New York, and I lived in New York for a little while. And then I was there for a bit. And then Frankie says, "Hey, we're moving our operation to California. Why don't you come to California?" And me, I don't do good with cold weather. I mean, right now I have a little heater next to me. I just don't like, you know. Yeah.
Richie, mine.
Yeah.
How about -40
Yeah. Oh my Lord.
Celsius?
So,
I dare you.
oh, no, thank you. So then I moved from,
I'm just kidding.
yeah, no, I know. And then I moved from New York to California, and I came with a gig with Frankie, and then I
Nice.
settled here, and I've
That's
been here ever since. I mean,
beautiful.
and it's been great. And a lot of my trajectory as far as a musician, and I've had the pleasure of being at your Yokosa thing several times, and especially that one time, which was a very big honor for me when you gave me that award and everything. I remember that. I have it. It's on my wall, not in this room,
Nice.
but it's and
Nice.
no,
Well,
and the experiences I have are just countless.
yeah,
So
and the
it was
nice thing
really,
is
really,
in a
really great.
situation in the Cosa environment, I mean, all the great people that we've had, and that's not over yet. I mean, over the years, it's been 28 years now. All these people, imagine 25 artists on
Right.
site, and we get to perform with each other and hang out. Lunch, dinner, breakfast, classes, go to each other's classes, and
No,
and
that
it's
was
and it's
so much fun.
incredible.
That was really
Yeah.
fantastic. I mean, I love it. I have some videos here and there, me playing with Zorro and me playing with just I can't even think. So many different people, that were there. Russ Miller,
Russ
every,
Miller, yes.
everybody that you had, Oscar Cartaya on bass, no, not Oscar, Stagnaro.
Stagnaro.
Stagnaro, you had
Yeah.
him, and then I mean, yeah, it was just we got to do a little bit of everything. I got to play with you, with your group, uh,
Oh man, that's right. You with repercussion, you
with
played with us. Yeah,
repercussion. I
yeah,
remember I
yeah.
played djembe or something. You wanted me to sit in and play something like that, and all of those things. It's all adds up to the whole package of my experiences. And now that I teach at MI, I've been in MI for 20 some years teaching.
Wow.
I that experience I'm able to share it with all of the students. And talking about supporting myself, I told my students the other day, I grabbed the telephone and I said, look, you need to learn all this stuff so that you can go pay for this, because it should not be mom and dad. You should pay for this telephone. Okay. And I tell them that, and they all look at me like, I go, yeah. I said, if you want to be in the music business, you have to do it. Okay. So I have a lot of Asian, students from China, from Japan, like that, mostly in the department. But really, one thing I got to say, they're so studious. They really do their
Yes.
homework. It was really something.
Yeah,
And
they're not spoiled. They understand. They understand that they have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's been really great. So then, well, I don't know. I mean, what else you want me to talk about? Because I've done so many different things.
The one thing, you were playing with Phil Collins. Besides doing the Tarzan movie, you did a lot of touring with him, with Phil. How did that come about?
So do what now? I'm sorry, I lost you.
Phil Collins, you played with Phil Collins for a long time, and also including his movie Tarzan. How did that come about? How did that develop?
Well, as you know, and you know very well, Luis Conte. Luis Conte was the main percussionist with Phil Collins. And when the Tarzan film came out, which Phil wrote all of the music, there was so much percussion in it that he told Luis, I want you to recommend a second percussionist so that we can do all these parts, because he likes to hear all of the parts. So then Luis recommended me, which I've always been grateful to and thankful to him, that he got me on the gig. And then I ended up doing it. And then I started becoming like the sub. When Luis was not available, they would call me. And so I became like the second guy. So I wasn't permanently on the thing, but I was kind of like the in and out kind of guy,
Mm-hmm.
And then for a few years, everything kind of quieted down, and then it started up again. And Luis was very busy with James Taylor, and Luis has played on everything, and he's on everything, more than anybody.
Yeah,
I
no,
know.
he was.
Yeah, him. Alex.
Yeah, he was in Montreal with James Taylor and Steve Gadd on drums and everybody. And so I got to see them backstage, and they came over.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Luis is, him, Alex Acuna. These have been guys that have been like mentors in a way, and so anyway, so then Luis was so very, very busy with the James Taylor thing, and he was in France. And no, before that, Phil has and his wife have a foundation in which they were doing some, foundation to bring up and coming young musicians and artists and that kind of a thing. So they had done one of those fundraisers in Miami, but there was going to be another one in Geneva, in Switzerland. And Luis couldn't do it because he was on tour. So then I got a call from Phil's manager. He says, "Can you come out with?" And I hadn't seen him in a while. He said, Richie, we know that you've played with us, whatever. Are you available to come out and do this?" He said, "But, it's not a tour." I said, "But it's a fundraiser, and we'll take care of all of your expenses." I go, "Yeah, of course." So I went out there and I did that. And Phil's son was 16 years old, and he was playing drums, Nicholas. And Phil,
yes, I saw Nick.
Phil says to me, he says, "Richie," he says, "can you kind of just kind of guide him?" I said, "He can play, but he's not used to playing in a band, in this kind of a band." So I helped him out, and we did that and got along really great. So I came back home after that, and then I got another call, and they said, "Listen, has got to leave, and we're in Paris. Can you come out to Paris for? We have about 3 or 4 gigs, and we're going to England and to Ireland and to wherever else in the area. I said, can you come out? I go, yeah. So then Luis left, and I came and I did that. And then I couldn't believe it. I get on stage. The first gig was at Hyde Park. There was 80,000 people.
Oof.
And I'm going like, oh, my God. I mean, so we did that.
Nice.
And then we went from there to Ireland, and everything was stadiums, So I did all of that. And it was really great. And so then I came back home after the whole thing. And again, I got another call later, and they said, we can't, Luis is not available to do all of this touring. He says, we don't, and we can't have somebody coming in and out. I said, so we'd like for you to do the tours from now on. And then I ended up staying there for the last 3 years or so,
Nice.
which was really great.
Nice.
And I got to, everywhere we played. We played a place in Holland. I can't remember the name of it, but it looked like a sea of people. It must have been easy 100,000 people or something. It was incredible,
Wow.
And I got to the whole thing. And the thing that I really loved was that when they sent me the show, I noticed that there was always a drum kind of duet thing or drum portion of the show where whoever was playing, like when it was Chester Thompson, Phil and Luis would do this drum thing, Well, of course, Phil then had that surgery, so he couldn't play anymore, and so his son became the drummer, and him and Luis would do this whole duet thing, and it's part of the show, and Phil would leave the stage. So, excuse me. So then when they sent it to me, I said, I don't want to copy what Luis is doing. And the thing is, why don't I come up with something, and how could I involve Phil to do this? So I tell you, it was like a dream. I was sleeping, and I saw Phil playing a cajon, but as a table cajon. And then his son and me playing regular cajons. And I went to LP, and I said, hey, do you guys have like a cajon, or can you make one that would be like a table, like you could play from sitting? They go, oh yeah, we have one that we made because it's really a Mino product and we can't put it out in the market because it's, Mino owns the rights to it. And they said, but what do you want it for? I said, what's for Phil Collins? I said, here, take it. So they gave it to me, and I called and I sent a message to Nicholas, Phil's son, and I said, do you think that Phil might be interested in playing like a cajon, like a table cajon, because I have this idea. He says, well, Dad, he's not playing, and I don't, but I'll mention it to him. So he mentioned it to him, and he sent me a message back. He says, Dad said that it sounds interesting. So then so I brought the cajon and the 2 of the cajons to the rehearsal in Florida. And when I put it out, Phil sat down, and I said, Phil, and he hit it first, and he went like, oh, he says, my hands, I can't, and this is not loud enough to be playing in a stadium with 50,000 people. I said, guys, I went to the sound people, put a microphone in this thing and put it in the system, but put it like you do with the drum set and that kind of thing. And then Phil hit it, boom, and he went like, wow. So then he got so into it. Before, they were telling me that he wasn't coming much to rehearsals because his medical thing, and he just wasn't inspired. He was down because of not being able to play. He started coming to every single rehearsal.
Nice.
And we developed this thing. It became, first it was just a few minute thing during the show, and ended up being a 10, 15-minute part of the show.
Wow.
And
is that recorded?
Huh? And it's online.
Is it recorded?
You can go to, if you put Nick Collins, Richie Garcia duet, you'll see and I wrote the whole thing. I had his son play the first time he was playing in 5/4, then it would go to 4/4 to me, and then we would do this break and finish enjoying Phil on the stage like that. Then I wrote another one, 7, but whatever. You should check it out. It came out really good. And because of that, I was told from the other band, he said, Richie, he said, because I knew all the players, hadn't been, really traveling with them a lot. They said, you have no idea what you've done. I said, what do you mean?
Sure.
He says,
I can see
he's
it.
inspired again. Hasn't been
You
Yeah, he said he wasn't. He had kind of lost his interest because he couldn't do anything. So now, if you
sure.
go to those videos, you see him playing. Playing on the cajon on the table, and it sounds good, and we're playing along with him. So anyway, so once again, like you said, you never know what happens. It's. I guess it was meant for me to be there to make this happen. You know, and of
Yeah,
course, the
and
experience
wow,
of playing
congrats.
with Phil and traveling around the world was, yeah, it was really
Yeah,
great.
and he's such a
So of course
such
he's
a
what?
no, I said he's such a great human being.
Yeah.
Never mind one of the greatest drummers. Such a musician and a great human. But something interesting. Recently, I played at
Definitely.
the percussive. I played at the Percussive Arts Society, and I went to see Nick was doing a clinic. So I went to see what he was doing. Sounded great. And I
Yeah.
had seen him actually I had seen him before in concert when he just sat in a couple of tunes with Phil in the band. He would invite him to play a tune or two.
Right.
And now he's playing all the time. But he's sounding great. And a funny thing happened to me when I was doing my concert at the PIS conference. For some strange reason, my drums didn't show up. So these guys come running in and they say, "Well, we have a set. We have Nick's drums. Are you okay with using those?" I said, "Listen, whatever it takes."
Yeah, whatever's
So
there.
within 10, yeah. So within 10 minutes, they put it all together, and I played on Nick's drums. He doesn't know that,
He
but
doesn't know that. Well, anyway, and I tell you, he's a complete gentleman. He's the son of a superstar, yet he's, very, very well raised, well mannered, very respectful
nice.
of everybody else in the band. And, it was really, really a great experience for me all around because it was different from, I play with a lot of people, I play with, Frankie, and I play with, I can't even remember, Christopher Cross.
Sting, you played with Sting also.
Yeah,
You did some work with
that was
Sting.
also a similar thing where he had written the music for a cartoon that was called The Emperor's New Groove. And so we did what we did with promotional work. We were on TV. We were in different theaters and everything. And actually, that was a great band because Vinny Caliuta was on drums. Luis and I were doing percussion. Nathan East was on bass. I mean, it was like a pretty amazing band.
No,
So
nobody
it
else
wasn't
was
very
in
long.
town, right?
Yeah. Nobody else was available. Yeah, so it was with all those guys, and it wasn't very long. It was for about 3 weeks, but hey, I hung out with Sting. He was the nicest guy, really great. Him, like I said, Phil. I think they recognize that when you are a real player, you know what I mean. There's somebody that's experienced. They respect that, in you, and they treat you that way. Musicians
Sure.
that are stars treat their sidemen differently than people that are just singer stars that don't really play instruments. It's
Yeah.
a different ball game, but they're all great in their own ways. I mean,
Sure.
working with Diana at first, I was not really allowed much to go up to her to talk to her and everything like that. But now, after playing with her for some years, she'll call me directly. Richie, are you available to come and play with me? I go, yeah, I have recordings of Diana Ross on my phone. Christopher Cross, who I toured around the world, did a live album in Paris, video, the whole thing. He sends me, Richie, happy birthday or whatever, Merry Christmas, whatever.
Nice.
Tony Orlando and Dawn, which I did 8 years. All I did was Reno, Vegas, Tahoe, Atlantic City. Tony calls me all the time. Richie, are you come and play with me? Blah blah blah. So I've gotten to that point where my experiences and the fact that I was always very responsible and dependable, that people know they can count on me. And I never went on anybody's gig to try to take their job. One thing,
And that's important.
I actually, my whole career has been subbing for other people. And they could send me. And then what would happen is that the other people were too busy with other stuff. So they would say, well, hey, Richard, you're here. Stay here on the gig. Oh, okay. That kind of a thing. And so
Right.
it worked out where I got to, I just happened to be there at the right place at the right time. And I got to do all of those things, and all the different markets that I played, and not only the American and Latin music. I played with Celia Cruz. I did some gigs with Tito Puente. I played with Juan Gabriel. I played with a lot of the Mexican artists. I played with Filipino artists. I played with Korean ones, Chinese, whatever. I don't know, whatever. Give me a cowbell, I'll play anywhere. So
right. No, but you also
thing.
have this. No, and it's great. I mean, you're saying something really important that I think people should really take into consideration is what are you bringing to the table? I mean, it's obviously the talent that's first and foremost important, but also making people feel comfortable, people feeling. You brought something to the table. You brought yourself as a human being, and you're interested in their work, and you make it better, and you do whatever it takes. I mean, just the thing with Phil Collins. I mean, this is the first time I hear this story, and to me, wow, that's a mind blower. Not all the great things that you've done, but that's one of the greatest things you could do for somebody. You just make them feel good.
Yeah,
Just
I'm
make them
telling you.
feel
I mean, when
good.
you get a chance and we're done with that thing, check it out. You can see Phil playing and me and
Yes.
Nicholas and myself next to him playing on stage in a place where there's 50, 60,000 people, and we're playing at home. You know what I mean? But it was something that really made me feel good. And Phil came by next to me, and he thanked me for it. He was like really happy, and he would ask me, Richie, what do and I tell him, here, well, hit it this way, because he doesn't have conga hands, you know what I mean? You know what it like. I said, no, you can just play it this way. I said, do it this way. I said, as long as the volume is up, you don't really have to hit the thing, really hard.
Yeah.
Just, be comfortable, use your fingers, use whatever. And he listened and he did it because he's a musician. He knows, And he would then during the show, when his son and I were doing our duet, he would sit right on the stage and wouldn't leave, just watching us.
Nice.
He would watch every single time, and then his instrument was behind him. And as soon as we were getting close to the thing, he would turn around, and the spotlight would go right on him to start it by himself. I mean, he was in heaven in that moment, shall we say?
Beautiful.
So
I mean,
it was really
thanks.
a great thing.
Yeah, and I
that's
mean,
the thing
you're
that I
just a
try to
great
do in
great person.
Well, thank you for that. But I just try. I humbly do what I do. I do it to the best of my ability. I'm not the greatest player in the world, but I play for the music, and I do what I think the music needs, and that's it. I have my people that I love. They're playing. Giovanni Hidalgo, inspiration. People like that. Paoli now goes all over the place. I mean, just amazing players, and the drummers that I played along. I play drums. I have my own trio that I play at a restaurant from time to time just to keep my drumming up. And I was the drummer on the Paul Rodriguez TV show for a while. I played drums for John Denver and Art Garfunkel and that kind of stuff. So I try to keep it up that way. But when I learned a lot just being right next to, Jonathan Moffett from, Michael Jackson's drummer, and Greg Bissonette and Vinny Colaiuta. I played with all of these guys, and I'm going like, you're kidding. I watch them and I'm always like, hey, how do you do this? And what do you do with your, I'm always asking questions, still here I am, a senior citizen, I have to,
senior citizen.
I got to walk around with an oxygen tank from time to time, but no, I'm just kidding.
No, not yet.
Not yet. No, but what I'm saying is that I still practice. Still try to keep it up, because if anything I learned becoming a senior is we have to keep moving. You can't, that thing about sitting. Yes, we got to keep the mind. I'm always trying to learn something new, any way I can, even if it's just a rhythm, it's a sticking thing, whatever it is.
Yeah. No,
and the teaching really helps me a lot, because because you got to try to explain to a student how to do something, and when you try to explain it, you got to figure it out to be able to teach it to somebody. So that works out really, really great. And what can I say? I'm more than grateful, that I can still do what I love to do, and I'm still active, and I'm in good health, and there we go.
Yeah, and the nice thing is, and I tell That's it. And you know, the interesting thing is, some of my friends will look at me and say, Aldo, you've been doing all of these things all these years, and you're still playing, you're still learning. I'm still buying new instruments, and I'm exploring. And I said, you know, until I die, I have to learn, because it really feels like now I'm beginning to understand things, you know, and also.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because now you have the maturity and the understanding of seeing things as they really are. Whereas 20 years ago, when you were doing great things, you didn't really understand it. You didn't have time.
Yeah, you
Right?
didn't have time. You were just, going with what you knew and go forward. But now I have
Yeah.
the time. Like I just recently played with before with Iranian artists, but the one thing that the person that I just played for, his name is Jakar. He said to me, "Do you know how to play a 6/8 but Iranian style?" I said, "Absolutely, I did it before." So then it worked out. You know what I'm saying? Those experiences come back, even if you don't play them for a while. You go like, "Wait a minute, let me just listen to something." Ah, yes, that. Let's go. You know, and that was those kind
Nice.
of things, and that's what I'm really really grateful in my life is my different experiences. It would have been great to be part of one band and shall we say Rolling Stones, where that's all I ever had to do and I became a multimillionaire and whatever like that. Okay, but I don't think I would have had the experiences that I have the way I've done by doing every kind of gig. you know
Yeah, and
Everything.
it's also a level of curiosity that just keeps you healthy, keeps you young, and keeps your machine going, and it
Yes.
keeps you young. I mean,
Yeah, for sure, because a friend of mine the other day, I went to and I got called a salsa gig, right? And salsa and conga playing it's very demanding. And I
yes,
sat down and I played, and the guy who was playing bongo next to me, he says, "Man, Richie," he says, "you're a senior, and your endurance and your thing." Well, I try to keep it up.
yeah,
He says, "You play like a young guy." I said, "Well, because in my mind, I'm still that young guy. My body may not say so when you look in the mirror, but my mind still remembers. Yeah, my mind still remembers how I play the stuff. And I
sure, sure.
approach it that way. And if it's a pop thing, I'll approach it that way. And those kind of things. So. Anyway, but
Yeah,
I want to, while we're talking here, I want to thank you for the times you invited me over to COSA, because that was also a great experience for me to be around
thank you,
people that
thank
maybe
you.
normally I couldn't have a chance to share time with. Because living in residence somewhere for a week or two, that's a blessing in disguise. You know what I mean? Because you get to see different people, ask them about this. Sometimes you can literally sit down next to someone and say like, "Hey man, how do you do this?" And not think about, "Oh, I gotta go. Oh, I gotta pay my bill. Oh, I gotta go
Yes,
to the bank." You know what I mean? Whatever.
yeah,
You in one place, and that worked out great for me when I also did the stuff in Germany in Marktoberdorf, Germany, at
right.
the academy there, where I got to be with Dave Weckl and Steve Smith and all of these other big time Marco Minimum, all these great drummers. So you
Yeah.
know,
Now, in these kind of situations that I mean, I've been thriving on. We've been doing it in China and Cuba, of course, for the last over 20 years, and North America. Now we're going to Italy next year. So, whoa,
yeah,
it's expanding in that department. But the neat thing
yeah.
is
Well,
to
I
have a
my
sorry.
no, I was going to say my son Roland's been saying, "Dad, when is there another trip going to Cuba? I'd like to go to Cuba." I said, "Well, I'll have to ask Aldo or someone that does those trips, because I went once, but that was a long time ago when Chuck Silverman was around.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah,
I went with him, Palito, they called him, and he rest in peace. And
yes, yes,
I made a trip, but it was before AU or anybody was doing these group things to go. So
right,
he's been
yeah.
wanting, to go. But the Italy stuff, there's a great band that I've recorded with and played over there. Where do you do the stuff in Italy? What city?
Well, we've done it in the past. We did it in Torino. Then the second time we did it in Calabria in the southern Italy, and now we're going to continue in southern Italy because we bought a place in southern Italy, 300 steps from the beach,
Uh-huh.
Ionian Beach. And so around there in Calabria is just amazing. It's like Los Angeles in the 1920s.
Oh,
So much
wow.
potential, so much space, so much great stuff. And I'm saying, oh my God. So I'm going to be, I already started opening up my studio there. I have half my instruments are already there.
Oh,
So I'm
wow.
setting up the studio. And when I'm there, I teach all my students from there online. And I'm building a local presence. And I found this abbey in Calabria. It's like 40 minutes from the international airport of La Mezzia. It's fantastic. It's an abbey, a 14th century abbey. So we're going to
Wow.
have the first one there. So we're going to be in a 30-acre grove, half an hour from the beach, but in this wonderful place that's been totally restored. It's going to be an insanity, musical insanity,
Wow.
and food.
Oh man, I love Italy. Like I said, the band that I played with and recorded with there in Padua. You
Oh,
know,
yeah, up north.
up
Ah,
north,
I know it from,
next
yes,
to
near
Venice.
Venice.
Yeah, an hour from Venice. An hour from Venice. Yeah, and so they're called Morocco Band, and this great band that I played with, and I recorded a couple of albums with them actually. Anyway, you'll have to take me to Italy. I want to go.
Be careful what you ask for, Richie. Just be careful.
I will. So, but anyway, my brother, it's really great to see you and spend time with you and talk.
Yeah, and thanks so much for being on and taking the time to do this. It's really nice to go beyond and what we're thinking, how things happen, and like I tell everyone, it's about the lucky breaks. It always happen when you do the work, the things you love, and you show up and you're just there. There's no coincidence. Things are just meant to be. You
Yeah,
either make the decision to say yes or no, and always the right thing happens. And when things don't
yeah,
happen, it's for a good reason.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm at it all the time. Now that I have a few days off, well, because of the holidays, which I'm going to take advantage, and now I'm going to go see the Nutcracker Suite and whatever stuff like that. Go see some
Nice.
of the friends that I don't get
Nice.
a chance to see play, and because you know how music is too. When you least expect it, you get a call for a gig here and a call over there, whatever. So I've been like nonstop, but right now I have a few days and try to do a little bit of Christmas shopping and stuff for the kids and all that kind of a thing. But it's
Nice.
really great.
Well, no, it's been really nice. And thanks again. Say hello to the kids. What am I saying, kids?
Yeah.
The other guys.
Yeah, no, yeah, Tristan, Roland, Tristan, my oldest son, he's going to be 40 years old. I can't believe it. And Roman is already
Wow.
37. I'm going like, my Lord, how do you play this thing, and how do you do this, and look at what he's become. He's done 15
Yes.
seasons of Dancing with the Stars and touring
Dancing
with
with the
everybody. He's
Stars.
been lately doing stuff with Bruno Mars and all of the younger bands. It's like I always say, uh, he uh, he used to be my son. Now I'm his father. So,
That's funny.
you know?
Well, as they say, that branch never left, didn't fall far from the tree.
No, no, I know. But anyway, my dear brother, so my regards to
Yeah.
you, family, happy, Merry Christmas, happy holidays, happy
Thank
everything,
you.
whatever's going on up there, and and uh,
Yeah. Thank
and
you.
make sure
And
that if you invite me to Ottawa, don't do it when it's 40 below zero, please.
no, but I'm in Montreal. Well, it's 2 hours
Oh,
away. Same
Montreal.
weather.
You know what? I love Montreal too, though. I played there several times with Gugush. Didn't you come to one of the concerts? Well, but where did I meet you? I was playing with Doc Severinsen when I first met you.
That's right. And you needed those instruments, the bata instruments that they didn't have over there. So we supplied them.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember. I remember. And that's
So we came out to see you in Ottawa. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, very cool.
That was
All
nice.
right, my brother. Well, anyway,
So you take care. And as I always say, to be continued.
to be continued.